No one talked to Owen the way he talked to walls. That was the first thing Vera noticed when she arrived at the house on Glenmore Ridge. Not the size of it, though the house was enormous, pale stone and tall windows overlooking the lake in the kind of quiet that money buys and grief deepens. She noticed the boy first. He was standing at the end of the hallway near the kitchen, facing the baseboard, whispering something she couldn't hear. He was 9 years old, maybe 10, wearing a gray sweater 2 sizes too big, and he didn't look up when the door opened. He didn't look up at all. The housekeeper who had hired her, a compact woman named Mrs. Barrow, walked past him like he was a lamp. "The boy keeps odd hours," she said, not unkindly, just tired. "He doesn't sleep much. Don't take it personally if he doesn't speak to you." She handed Vera a schedule printed on cardstock. "Mr. Calloway likes routine. Breakfast at 7, the study vacuumed by 9, linens changed Tuesdays." Vera looked down at the schedule. She looked back at the boy. He had stopped whispering. He was listening, though he still hadn't turned around. She had driven 6 hours from Winnipeg with 2 bags and a reason she hadn't told anyone. She needed the work. That was true, but she also needed somewhere that wasn't her apartment, wasn't her sister's couch, wasn't the city where she had built something from nothing and then watched it come apart in a boardroom on a Tuesday afternoon, with lawyers on both sides of a glass table. She had been the founder and the CEO and the face on the brochure, and then she had been the woman who signed the papers and took the payout and drove north until the traffic thinned and the signs changed. She hadn't planned on domestic work. She hadn't planned on any of this. But she had a name that no one up here would recognize: Vera. She was going by just Vera, the way her grandmother had called her, and she had hands that knew how to work, and she was standing in a hallway in a house in northern Ontario, and the boy was still listening to her breathe. "Owen," she said quietly. Not a question. Just his name. He turned around. His eyes were dark and careful, the way eyes get when a child has been studying adults and finding them insufficient. He looked at her for a long moment. He didn't say anything. Then he walked past her toward the stairs, trailing the oversized sleeve of his sweater along the wall. Mrs. Barrow watched him go. "He was better before," she said. "Before his mother." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Vera folded the schedule and put it in her pocket. The house had 6 bedrooms and the kind of kitchen built for a family that never quite happened at the size it was planned for. There were photographs in silver frames along the credenza in the main hall. A woman with close-cropped natural hair and a wide, certain smile, standing on a dock somewhere in the summer, standing in front of a red door at Christmas, holding a newborn Owen with an expression of complete and terrified love. The woman was beautiful in the way of someone who knew exactly who she was. Her name, Vera learned later from Mrs. Barrow without asking, had been Camille. Owen's father, Griffin Calloway, traveled. He was home on weekends, sometimes not even then. He worked in acquisitions. Vera gathered this from the Financial Post on the kitchen table, from the phone calls she could hear through the study door on Tuesday mornings, from the way people said his name on those calls. Careful and slightly too deferential. He was the kind of man who had people managing his people. He had hired Mrs. Barrow, and Mrs. Barrow had hired Vera, and there were 2 other staff who came and went. A landscaper on Thursdays and a woman named Sylvia who came to cook on the evenings Griffin was home. Vera did not meet Griffin Calloway for 11 days. She had settled into a rhythm by then. She was good at routines the way she was good at most things. Not perfectly, but steadily, with a kind of attention that looked like patience from the outside. She had run a technology company for 9 years. She knew how to read a room, how to hold back, how to wait. Owen began to test her on the 3rd day. He left his shoes in the middle of the hallway, directly in the path she used to bring clean linens to the upstairs rooms. She stepped around them the first time. The second time she picked them up and left them neatly outside his door without saying anything. The 3rd time she found them, she sat down on the floor of the hallway and started putting them side by side against the wall, and she heard a sound from inside the room. A small sound, half laugh, immediately suppressed. She filed that away. He left a glass of water on the edge of the second-floor landing, clearly positioned to be knocked over. She saw it and walked past it, came back with a cloth, moved it to the windowsill, wiped up the small ring it had left. He watched her from the doorway of his room. She didn't look at him. "You're not going to say anything?" he said. It was the first time he had spoken to her. His voice was careful, like he was reading from a script he was also writing in real time. "About what?" she said. "The glass, it was just a glass." She folded the cloth. "Was there something you wanted, Owen?" He thought about it for what felt like a long time. "No," he said, and closed his door. She stood in the hall for a moment. The house was very quiet. She had been that child. Not like him. Her version had been louder, more chaotic, raised in Scarborough, in a house that was never quiet enough and always a little too cold in January. But the testing, the watching, the waiting to see if someone would stay, she recognized that. She had done it at 9, at 12, at 34, in a boardroom, when she was trying to figure out who was actually on her side. The answer, most of the time, had been no one. She had built her company anyway. She found him on the 12th day, sitting in the window seat of the second-floor library, knees drawn up to his chest, a book open in his lap but his eyes out the window. The lake was gray that afternoon, the sky low and promising rain. She had come to dust the shelves, and she went about it quietly, without turning on any additional lights. After a while, he said, "Do you know what happens when a lake freezes from the bottom up instead of the top?" She considered this. "The fish die," she said, "because the ice cuts off the oxygen at the surface." He looked at her. "How did you know that?" "I used to do some work in water systems," she said, which was true in the most compressed possible way. Her first company, before the one that had gone so publicly sideways, had developed filtration infrastructure for northern communities. She had spent 3 months in Sioux Lookout, learning things about ice and cold and how water behaves when no one is watching it. "What kind of work?" he said. "Engineering, mostly. Some logistics." She ran the duster along a shelf of hardcovers, their spines ordered by height. "I've done a lot of things." "Why are you here?" He said it without accusation. Just curiosity, which was worse somehow. "Because I needed something different," she said. "Different from what?" She turned to look at him. He was watching her, with those careful dark eyes, the book now closed in his lap. Outside the window, the first drops of rain began to mark the glass. "From being the person everyone expected me to be," she said. He looked at her for a long time. Then he looked back out at the lake. "My mom used to say that people get confused about who they are when things get hard. She said you have to already know before it gets hard or you lose it." "She sounds like she was very smart," Vera said. "She was," he said. And then nothing for a while, just the rain. And then, very quietly, "I forget what her voice sounded like. It's only been 8 months, and I already can't hear it anymore." Vera set the duster down on the shelf. She walked to the window seat and sat down on the other end of it, not too close, not hovering. She looked out at the rain the way he was looking at it. "That happens," she said. "It doesn't mean you're forgetting her. It means your brain is trying to protect you." "From what?" "From missing her every second. It spaces it out." She paused. "But she's still there." The voice comes back, usually when you're not looking for it. He didn't respond. But he didn't leave. They sat there for a long time watching the rain come down on the lake, and eventually he opened his book again and she picked up the duster, and neither of them said anything else. But when she left the room, she heard him exhale, a long, slow breath, like something had been held for a very long time. She was mopping the kitchen floor when she first heard Griffin Calloway's voice. He had come in through the side entrance, the one that opened directly from the garage, and he was on the phone. His voice was low and controlled, the voice of someone who had learned to contain volume as a form of authority. She heard fragments, "Not until the Q3 numbers are on paper," and "I don't care what Davidson told them," and "Get it sorted before Thursday." He came around the corner still looking at his phone and stopped when he saw her. He was wearing a dark coat and a gray scarf, unshaven in a way that looked like the result of a week away rather than a style choice. He was younger than she had expected, Mid-40s, maybe, but tired in a way that makes people look both older and somehow younger at the same time. He looked at her without recognition. "You're the new one," he said. "Vera," she said. "Barrow said you'd started." He looked around the kitchen. "Is there coffee?" "In the pot," she said. "I made it about 20 minutes ago." He poured a cup and stood at the counter and drank it without sitting down, still scrolling through his phone. She finished mopping the section near the island and began to move toward the dining room. "Owen," he said. "Not a question." She stopped. "How is he?" he said. Still not a question. "He's upstairs," she said. "He ate well today. We talked a bit." He looked up from the phone at that. Just briefly. "He talked?" "A little, yes." He looked at her for a moment longer than felt neutral. Then he went back to his phone. "Right," he said. "Good." She finished the dining room floor. On her way back through, he had gone. The coffee cup was in the sink, rinsed, which surprised her. She didn't know that he had asked Mrs. Barrow about her. Not at first. Miss Barrow told her later, weeks later, when the situation had shifted enough that directness seemed reasonable. He had asked the next morning what she knew about the new housekeeper. Mrs. Barrow had told him what she knew. Vera had appeared, in response to the posting, had good references, had worked in private homes before, didn't talk much, but worked consistently, and the house looked better since she'd arrived. What Mrs. Barrow didn't know, what no one in that house knew, was that Vera Hutchins had been, until 14 months ago, the founder and CEO of a technology company called Meridian Infrastructure that had operated in 6 Canadian provinces and had been valued, at its peak, at just over $200 million. She had built it from a shared workspace in a converted Winnipeg warehouse, with 2 engineers she trusted and a business plan she had written in a series of composition notebooks over 3 years while working as a project coordinator for a municipal water authority. She had also, after 9 years, lost it, not to failure, not to the market, but to a coalition of board members and investors who had decided, over the course of 8 months, that a woman who had grown up poor in East Scarborough and who had refused to take the company public on their timeline was more of a liability than an asset. The buyout was generous by most definitions. By her definition, it was a door closing in her face in a hallway she had built. She had signed the papers on a Tuesday. By Thursday, she was in her car. She had not told anyone where she was going. Her sister thought she was at a wellness retreat. Her lawyer knew the address. That was all. She wasn't hiding. She was resting. She was trying to remember what she was before she became what they had needed her to be. She was also, unexpectedly, falling into something she hadn't prepared for. Caring about this child. Caring about what happened to him in this enormous grieving house where the adults moved around their own sadness, like furniture they couldn't decide to keep or move. Griffin started coming home more. She noticed it first because the coffee pot was empty more often in the mornings. Then because she began to hear his voice from the study. Not on Tuesdays, but on Thursdays, on Saturdays. He had started working from home. He was not, she gathered, a natural at being home. He moved through the house like a man who was performing a version of presence. The coat hung properly. The shoes on the mat, sitting at the kitchen table at the right time with coffee and a newspaper, the picture of a father in residence. But he was awkward around Owen in the particular way of adults who love children fiercely and have no idea how to sit in the same room with them without agenda. She watched him try. She gave him credit for that. One Saturday morning, she came in to find them both at the kitchen table, Owen eating cereal, Griffin with the newspaper open, and neither of them speaking. The silence was not unfriendly, exactly. It was more like 2 people on a bus who both know the other is there, and haven't decided yet whether to acknowledge it. She made coffee without interrupting. She refilled the sugar bowl and wiped the counter, and was nearly out of the room when Owen said, "Vera knows about lakes." She stopped. She heard Griffin look up. "Does she?" he said. She said fish die when a lake freezes from the bottom up. A pause. "Did you know that?" "I didn't," Griffin said. "That's something." "She knows a lot of things," Owen said, with the particular authority of a child delivering important information. "She doesn't tell you about it, though." You have to ask. She walked out of the room and stood in the hallway and felt something she hadn't felt in a very long time. The specific warmth of being known, even partially, even sideways, by someone who had no reason to. The afternoon she hadn't planned for came on a Tuesday in October, when the light was changing and the leaves on the ridge had gone from orange to rust to the particular dark red that means they'll fall within the week. She was in the library, returning books to their shelves. Owen had developed the habit of redistributing volumes around the house, a small architectural project she found oddly charming when she heard him come in. She hadn't heard the door. She was standing on the second shelf of the ladder, reaching for the top row, when she heard his voice directly below her. He was on the phone. His voice was different from his business voice, looser, rougher, more tired. She couldn't hear the other person. She could hear him saying, I know, Diane. I don't know what I'm doing with him. I don't know if I'm doing any of it right. A pause. He talks to the woman we hired. He doesn't really talk to me. She stood very still on the ladder. No, he said. I'm not saying it's her fault. I'm saying, I don't know. Maybe I'm not. Maybe Camille was the one who knew how to. He stopped. She heard him sit down in one of the reading chairs. I just miss her, he said very quietly. And I don't know how to be the only one. She did not move for a long time. When she heard him get up and leave, she came down from the ladder slowly. She sat in the other reading chair, the one that still had Owen's book open on its cushion, and she looked at the gray lake through the window. She had sat in a lot of rooms where people assumed they were alone and said the true things. In boardrooms, on calls she'd been accidentally left into, in the bathroom at fundraising dinners where someone's mask had slipped in a mirror. She had learned, over a long career of being underestimated, that the truest version of a person usually comes out when they think no one who matters is watching. She didn't think less of him. She thought more of him, which was the uncomfortable thing. It was Owen who broke everything open, the way children do idea that the facts are explosive. It was a Friday evening in November. Griffin was home, and Vera was collecting her bag to leave for the weekend when Owen appeared at the top of the stairs. He was holding something, a piece of paper she saw when he came down, a drawing. I did this, he said. He held it out to her. She took it. It was a drawing in pencil and some colored pencil, the kind of drawing a 10-year-old makes with genuine effort and only partial faith in the result. It showed a house, this house, recognizable from the stone and the tall windows, and 3 figures standing outside it. One tall, one medium, one small. Is that, she started. It's us, he said. It's you and me and Dad. She looked at the drawing. Owen, Griffin said. He had come out of the study and was standing at the hallway entrance, and his voice was strange. Soft and unsteady, like he was trying to hold something in or hold something back. She couldn't tell which. It's for the fridge, Owen said, perfectly calm, with the confidence of someone who has decided something and isn't interested in argument. Vera said teams are important. She hadn't said that. Exactly. She had said something like it, in the context of a conversation about hockey, which Owen had been watching on the small TV in the kitchen while she cleaned, and which she had commented on once, just once. Something about how the best teams weren't always the ones with the most talent. But he had kept it. He had been carrying it. She looked up from the drawing and found Griffin looking at her. Not at Owen, at her. His expression was the particular expression of a man who has been trying to solve a problem for a long time and has just, without warning, been shown that the problem was already solving itself. It's a good drawing, she said. Her voice came out even. She was proud of that. Owen took the drawing back and carried it to the kitchen with great purpose. She and Griffin stood in the hallway. The house was quiet. Through the kitchen doorway, they could hear Owen pulling a magnet off the fridge, rearranging things, making room. I heard you, she said quietly. In the library, last month. She felt him go still. I wasn't. I was on the ladder. I couldn't leave without making noise. How much did you hear? He said. His voice was neutral. Careful. Enough, she said. Then you know I've been trying, she said. Yes, I know. She looked at the space between them, which felt both very large and not as large as it should have been. For what it's worth, you're doing better than you think. He looked at her for a long moment. Vera, he said. And then he said it again, like he was testing the shape of it. That's not your whole name, is it? She considered lying. She had. She had been lying by omission for 4 months, and it had felt reasonable, necessary, survivable. No, she said. Hutchins, he said. He said it slowly. Vera Hutchins. I thought, the day I came home that first day, something about you. I kept thinking I'd seen you somewhere. He paused. I used to read the Post, Meridian Infrastructure. You were in that feature 2 years ago, the black tech founder taking on Alberta. She didn't say anything. That was you, he said. Yes, she said. The kitchen sounds continued. A magnet dropped. Owen swore quietly, the way he had heard adults swear, testing the word for size, and then retrieved it. Why are you here? Griffin said. It was the same question Owen had asked her in the library in September. She had a better answer now, or the same answer with more truth behind it. Because I needed somewhere real, she said. After all of it, I needed to know I could just be somewhere, do work with my hands, not be the story. He was quiet. I wasn't hiding from your son, she said. I wasn't using your son, whatever it looks like. I know, he said. I know that, she breathed. I should have told you. I know that too. He looked toward the kitchen. Owen had started narrating his own refrigerator arrangement project, the way he did sometimes when he thought no one was listening. A running quiet commentary that she had come to love without realizing she'd started. He's going to be okay, Griffin said. Isn't he? Yes, she said. He is because of you. Because of himself, she said. He's remarkable. He was already doing the work. He just needed someone to sit in the room. Griffin turned back to her. Something had changed in his face. Not softened, exactly, but settled. The way a room changes when the last piece of furniture finally goes where it was always supposed to go. I'd like for you to stay, he said. Not in the same capacity. I mean. He stopped. He looked, briefly, like a man who gives presentations to rooms full of people and has nonetheless completely lost his thread. I mean, I'd like to know you, the actual you. If that's, it is, she said. Before he could finish, before she could overthink it. In the kitchen, Owen finished his project. Done, he announced. To no one, to the room, to the house. It's perfect. She stood in the hallway with Griffin Calloway and believed him. The lake outside the window had gone dark with the early November evening, and the house held the warmth of the day slowly. The way it always did, patient and full, the way things are when they have been waiting a long time for something to arrive, and it finally has.